The Final Reckoning was the perfect ending for this Mission Impossible franchise, and I'm not afraid to say that I loved this movie, but it also does have its fair share of flaws as well, so let's talk about it. But as always, before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Aaron and I talk all things movies and TV, but really mostly movies, so if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. That would be greatly appreciated on my end. And if you like my videos, hit the like button while you're at it. And of course, if you've already seen the movie, let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments. But now with that all out of the way, let's talk about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So this movie is a direct follow-up to the events of Dead Reckoning, and in this movie, once our main villain, or the Entity, threatens to destroy the world, it's up to none other than Ethan Hunt and his team to figure out a way to save everyone one last time. Jumping right into the good, and the first thing I have here is, of course, you can't talk Mission Impossible, and you can't have a Mission Impossible movie without the man himself, Tom Cruise. I don't ever want this man to stop making movies. I know he said he wants to make movies until he's like 110 years old, but he is a movie star slash filmmaker that just loves every aspect of making a movie, and it shows up in the movies that he creates. I'm convinced he's willing to die for the sake of our entertainment, because some of the stunts he pulls off in this thing are just downright ridiculous. And then you add on the fact that this guy is in his 60s, looking and moving like someone in his 30s doing all of these stunts, and that's even more ridiculous. This movie is the perfect encapsulation for this franchise, and in this we get to see Ethan kind of reconcile and come to terms with all the choices and things that have happened in his past. That's kind of the main theme throughout this entire movie, and it really gave this film a sense of finality. I mean, it truly feels like in some way, shape, or form that every single Mission Impossible movie ties into this movie, and that just made the story of this film feel that much bigger. The reason why this is one of the best action franchises of all time is because of Tom Cruise and the way he just continues to up the ante in each of these movies, and he does that again in this film. And that kind of leads me into my next good thing about this movie, which is probably the best part of this film, and that is the stunts. Now, this franchise has gotten to the point where part of the reason you're going to see these movies is just to see what crazy stunt that Tom Cruise is going to pull off next. I think there is an iconic stunt in every single one of these Mission Impossible movies, and this one is no different. That plane scene that was in the trailers is better than it was advertised to be, and I would say you really only see like 10% of that scene in the trailers. It is so much longer and cooler in the movie. The sheer fact that Tom Cruise was actually up there hanging onto this plane while it's doing all these flips and tricks in the sky never ceases to amaze me. And I can't remember where I saw it, but I saw like an interview or a video of him talking about all the different things that he had to think about while he was up there, and it just made me like and respect this movie even more. Essentially, outside of the pilot, he was the only one up there, so he had to be the director, the cameraman, the actor, the stunt coordinator, all while making sure he stays in character for this scene and gets all the shots and angles that he wants. That would be a challenging job to do if you were on the ground filming, and he is strapped to an airplane thousands of feet in the air doing this. So just, I mean, kudos to Tom Cruise, man. He is truly one of a kind, and I don't think we'll ever get another person like Tom Cruise in the movie industry. But as amazing as that scene was, am I crazy to say that that wasn't even my favorite part of the movie? Because that submarine sequence is probably one of my favorite sequences in this entire franchise. Did that scene get a little bit unrealistic towards the end? Yes, but during it, they built up the tension in this sequence beautifully, and I was just sitting on the edge of my seat throughout this entire scene, just in awe that Tom Cruise is actually doing all of this underwater in his 60s. This movie could have easily used CGI for all of those action scenes, but then again, if they did, this franchise wouldn't be what it is today. And the thing that really makes all of these movies special is Tom Cruise and the real practical stunt work that they do. And I've said this in reviews before, but in a world that sometimes overuses CGI a little bit too much, I will always appreciate a movie that does things for real and uses practical effects, because that only immerses you in the movie so much more. Moving on to the so-so. Now, as much as I love this movie, it is by no means a perfect film, and it definitely has its flaws. So the first thing I have here is that first hour of this film is pretty slow and kind of tough to get through. It was very exposition heavy to the point where they were over explaining the plot, and there's also tons of flashbacks to previous movies, and as a fan I didn't necessarily mind that, but it also is a very valid criticism if you are someone that didn't like that aspect of the movie, because cutting back to those previous scenes in previous movies did kind of throw off the pacing in the beginning of this film. And also the tone of this movie is very different. It's much more serious, unlike the fun kind of adventurous tone that the previous movies have had. The best way I can describe that first hour is it's kind of a recapping of the events of Dead Reckoning, while it also tries to pay homage to the previous films in this movie, and it just kind of feels like they stretch that storyline out as long as they can just to fill time to get you to the next 2 hours of the film, which are way better than the first hour of the film, because we get those two massive stunts that Tom Cruise does. It's a very slow burn as it sets up that plot in the beginning, and I'll be honest, it almost lost me in the first hour of this film, but again, I am thankful for the following 2 hours after that, because that's when we get that Mission Impossible that we know and love with those two giant stunts that Tom Cruise does. The next thing I have for the so-so is, just like in Dead Reckoning, I am still a little mixed on the villain. The Entity is this unseen villain that supposedly has taken in all outcomes and knows everything that's going to happen before it's going to happen, and just wants to destroy the world for no reason at all, and that just wasn't compelling at the end of the day. So overall, that just made for a weak villain, and it kind of dampened the stakes of this movie because you knew he was going to be defeated at the end of all of this. But I think the most annoying part of this for me is that there was a better villain in this movie, and that was Gabriel, played by Esai Morales. I feel like he was kind of wasted in this film. He was absent for a big majority of this thing, and they also didn't capitalize on the past that he had with Ethan. I just feel like they could have went way deeper into what happened between those two, because in Dead Reckoning we learned that it's Gabriel that killed someone that Ethan loved, and in this movie they don't go any deeper than that. That's all we know. They don't go any deeper into their past relationship or kind of what maybe led to that killing. It's just that they don't expand on that anymore, and I just feel like if they would have expanded on that, it would have made their little hero-villain relationship feel more personal, and then in turn would have made Gabriel a stronger, more compelling villain. So I just feel like there was just a big opportunity missed with the villain of this film, and also to expand on Gabriel's character. And finally, getting into the bad, and the only thing I have here was probably my biggest pet peeve with this movie, and that is that at times it feels like this film treats the audience like they've never seen a Mission Impossible movie ever. This goes along with that slow start of the film, but they just did so much over explaining and so many flashbacks that it just felt like they didn't trust the audience to know what they were talking about. And even though there was a part of me that didn't mind some of those flashbacks, because I am a fan and it's always fun to see those iconic scenes again, I would have been totally okay without them, and I think this movie would have been totally okay without them too, because I'm a fan of this franchise, so you don't need to recap and tell me what happened in Mission Impossible 3, because I know what happened in Ghost Protocol, I know what happened in Rogue Nation and Fallout, Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible 1, I even know what happened in Mission Impossible 2, even though it is the by far weakest of the bunch. So there's no need to go back and recap and remind us of all of that, because I wouldn't be here if I wasn't a fan of this franchise and if I didn't know anything about this franchise. So that was just one of my big grievances with this movie. It didn't ruin my experience with this film at all. It was just something I noticed, like, hey, we know exactly what those iconic moments are. No need to go back and recap them and over explain what happened in those moments, because we know, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't know. But at the end of the day, even though this movie does have its flaws, I still think it's a perfect send-off for this franchise. It has some of the greatest stunts out of all of the movies, and Tom Cruise is truly at his best in this. It's not the best movie in the franchise, but I still enjoyed the heck out of it. Those are my thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.